Hi there, I'm Richard Murphy. I'm a technical marketing engineer on the team inside Collaboration, and we're going to talk about Collab transitions, meetings, transition from telepresence server and CMR hybrid bridging to Webex meetings. You might be saying to yourself, what is this about? This is a quick, short overview of some of the documentation we've created about how to migrate your meetings from on-premises to the cloud. So as an overview, this project started many years ago in the sense that we were trying to figure out how do we actually migrate customers from on-premises to the cloud, right? What would be some of the benefits, some of the challenges, look at the gaps and say, okay, these features are blockers. Let's get them through engineering, fixed, and move over. So as a result of that, we kind of created a presentation, as you can see here. This is a short snippet of it, and also some overview documentation on what are the key things you need to be aware of or consider to do this transition and how to do it. So, a couple of key things. Why would I actually change from my existing environment to the cloud environment? Well, maybe it's an end-of-life product I have today. It's MCU, telepresence server. They're end of sale for a number of years now. And I want to move over into an environment like Webex, for example, that hosts content, audio, has a global reach, allows me to actually interact with partners and not utilize all of the bandwidth on my local network. I can bring in external participants to the cloud, or I can actually utilize my existing environment through the internet and connect to those particular meetings. I could, if I wanted to, put video mesh on there, similar to an on-premise bridge. Allows me to keep as much traffic as possible on premises, but still creates cascades to the cloud. Remember, video mesh is a cloud component, unlike other standalone MCU and bridges, so it's slightly different. In addition to that, when I make this move, the user environment pretty much stays the same. They put in whatever connection type, whether it's one button to push, they press the green button, or the URIs stay the same, and they just dial into that particular meeting like they would before. Now, if I was going to look at this, how would I actually transition? So kind of a journey map of what would be the logical steps that I'd want to do. So I would have my existing environment, which I have today, which is represented by 0. Then in the middle, I would have my cloud meetings. In other words, this would be when I transition over from telepresence server to Webex. I could have just Webex only, or I could add the video mesh. And then a logical step after that is, what about moving the rest of my endpoints to the cloud too? So I have a pure cloud environment. And that would be like the next logical step you could discuss with the customer. Now for the rest of this presentation, we're just going to talk about these two steps here. There's another video and a bunch of other documentation around the endpoint migration. So first off, let's talk about the existing environment. What would be typically there in most customers that have on-premise only environments. And it would look something like this. Now you can take a moment and digest every one of these components on it. We're only going to talk about two things here. The telepresence server and the conductor. So telepresence server, if you're not familiar with it, that's the orchestration unit that actually says, okay, sorry, I said that wrong. Conductor is the orchestrator. Telepresence server is the actual bridge itself with all the resources. So whether you're scheduling it or dialing directly, you can go to meeting1@xyz.com and you would reach the telepresence server, whether it's a scheduled meeting or an ad hoc meeting. And if you need to connect outbound, it would actually go through your existing expressway firewall traversal setup. Now, if we move to the cloud, what changes? So all of my media resources were on premises. Now we've actually moved them to the cloud inside of Cisco Webex data centers. So logically, if you look at this diagram, there's a couple things that could change, but we're going to focus on two components here. One being the video mesh node, which is totally optional. You could put this on to start with, you could put it on in the future, or you could not put it on the environment at all. What this does is allows you to keep as much traffic that started on premises between those devices into the video mesh and eliminate the need for them to go directly out to Webex. So say, for example, on the Webex side here, you have meeting1@example.webex.com. If I was to dial that and had a video mesh, we'd land on the video mesh. If I didn't have that and I was coming from the inside network, then I would go directly out into the Webex cloud. So if you notice here, that's an optional component. And also the URIs might have changed a little bit from where we're dialing to. So an example here, we have meeting1@sitename.webex.com, or I still could have personal meeting rooms at sitename.webex.com. Or the short URIs, if it's enabled on your site, would be just the meeting number at webex.com. So that would be some of the major changes you would see, but the components pretty much stay the same, and the traffic flow changes depending on which ones you have in there, whether they go to video mesh and video mesh to Webex, or go from on-premise directly into the Webex environment itself. Now this slide here gives you an idea of kind of 3 different ways we look at it, right? What's the pre-transition steps? What's the transition steps? And then what's the post-transition steps? So you have to think about it in this way. How do I get prepared? What do I do when it's time to change? And what should I do after it? Now I won't read each one of these bullet points here because it's here for you, but in general, make sure you understand what the environment you want to have in a pre-transition, right? Is video mesh part of it? Do I have the proper licensing in place? Is there a Webex site that I'm actually set up and ready to go with? How does scheduling handle today? What are we going to change, if anything at all, when we do this migration with scheduling? Then you move into the process of, okay, now it's time to do it. We've thought through all the process. We've thought through kind of what the environment looks like. Where is it going? Then we do the implementation. Do we have a new Webex site on the video platform too that we're going to? How do we handle directory connector? Is single sign-on something we need to be concerned about in the environment? What about scheduling? When I do the scheduling changes, what happens to those new meetings? What happens to the existing meetings? If you think about it, moving from one platform to the other, but the URIs might change. So when do you actually start the new platform utilizing these particular meetings? Do I install video mesh or not? And then once you're done with that, start thinking about, okay, now I've got this up and going. We've tested it. We've documented it. We've trained the users in this. What do I do as a follow-on step? Well, I start removing some of the components of it, and I start monitoring the environment itself. And these are kind of the key components that you want to think about as you go through this. Now you may be saying to yourself, how can I find more information? Well, we have lots of reference links here, as you can see. Now, I'm not going to read through each one of these, and I doubt you're actually going to copy down these links, but we'll give you the direction of where the PDF file and these particular slides are so you can go into more detail. In addition to that, in each one of these transitions in the bottom right, as you can see here, we have a deployment guide that talks through the high-level steps that you need to go through and the considerations of each one, referencing different components and other documentation we have standard inside of the Cisco web pages. Now, I also mentioned too that there's another transition too. So if you're familiar with Collaboration Meeting Room Hybrid solution, now this has been out for a long time ago, but basically the concept of that was MCU or telepresence server would handle the local participants. It would dial a single cascade out to the Webex environment, and you would connect the two together, Webex participants and on-premises. But there'll be only a single video stream going across. And the experience, well, is our first foray into actually bringing the on-premise infrastructure with the Webex cloud together. In today's comparison, is not very good at all. So most likely you're going to probably move away from that environment if you have that, which is telepresence server MCU on the premises to Webex meetings. And the transition map will look exactly the same, right? You're going from existing environment, and then you're migrating over into Webex. Now, one of the key differences here I'll point out is in that older environment, the platform that was used from a Webex perspective is an older platform, and everything we have going on today is in a newer platform. So we call the old one Video Platform 1 and a new one Video Platform 2. So that will be one of the major changes that you'd have when doing this. But otherwise, pretty much things are mostly the same. So if you look at this architectural page, you might be saying, this looks very familiar. And you're right. It is very familiar. When you migrate afterwards, it should look like what we had before because we're moving to the newest Webex platform, and then we have the components and capabilities that are available inside that platform. So that was a lot to ingest in this short period of time. Where can I get additional information? Well, I told you we provide it, and there's a link here as you can read. www.cisco.com/go/CT. If you go there, and CT stands for Collab Transitions, if you go to that particular web page, you'll see all the different transitions. You'll see an extended version of this particular presentation there, all the links, and the deployment guides. Hopefully you find this short video helpful, and thank you for your time.